A very good afternoon to all of you and welcome on the Sunset Safari. My name is Jamie and this afternoon David is on camera with me once again. David, for the first time since you've been back.
Yes.
It is wonderful to have you with me once again. So, we are on a live safari. As you saw, there are two rhino and I'm trying to get us a little bit closer because, well, as I said, they're quite far away. So we're for our new viewers, of course our regular viewers as well, but you know the drill. For our new viewers, hashtag Safari Live is how you get hold of us. You can send through questions, comments, and poetic criticism, but please be gentle. I know it was predictable. Got to be kind. Constructive criticism. Or mean criticism at this point. My skin's almost as thick as those rhinos these days. Alright, so on we go. We're going to go around, all the way around, and we're going to make our way towards those two. I think it's a mum and a grown-up or nearly grown-up calf. This distance is quite tricky to tell. It could also hang around in an undisclosed area. The lovely thing, of course, with being out here in the Masai Mara is we actually get to spend time with rhino, which is invaluable because it really teaches people a little bit about them, especially for people who perhaps are only recently discovering this as a live stream and might be unfamiliar with the incredible animals that Africa has to offer. So it's two black rhinoceros. I'm a little bit concerned in this windy weather because it is going to, you guessed it, rain on us this afternoon. We're going to try and get close, but they might be a bit nervy in the wind. So it's going to take some delicate sneaking up on them to get us there. So while we do that, sneak being a relatively operative word, as the weather closes in here in Kenya, let's go all the way down to the southern tip of the African continent to Tristan, who apparently is bundled up on a chilly Juma.
I am bundled up, Jamie, but the good news is that it is not raining, and well, that's at least a better start than yesterday. So welcome to South Africa and to our afternoon of epicness. I feel like we're going to have a great afternoon, and as Jamie said, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I do have Wiem the wildebeest. And because we're going to have an afternoon of epicness, that means that all of you are invited to interact with us. So you hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or YouTube chat should you want to ask us any questions, and hopefully we're going to have a busy afternoon. There's lots going on around us at the moment. I think a couple of the options are probably not going to really come to fruition just because of where they are and certain parameters, but I'll delve into what's happening just so that you guys can know what's been happening since we finished our drive this morning, because lots has happened. So apparently there's a cheetah and 3 cubs that is north of the Buffelshoek boundary, quite far, but is slowly moving southwards, so hopefully she does come down towards Buffelshoek Dam. There was also tracks for 3 wild dogs at Buffelshoek Dam this morning that were on top of some of the vehicle tracks, so they're around somewhere. 2 Birminghams have got a buffalo kill north of the Buffelshoek boundary as well, not too far from Tamboti Dam, which is not too far. And then also Tundi was seen just as we finished our drive, as we wrapped around Twin Dams Road. So lots happening and lots for us to follow up, and of course the Angama Pride is still around. So that's going to be our plans for this afternoon. We're going to try and just have a little look for Tundi quickly, see if we can just pick up some tracks to follow. If we don't have too much luck with that, we're going to head all the way to Chitwa, get a brief glimpse of the cubs, because I think it's going to be a very busy sighting. Obviously it closes at night with the little cubs there. You can't view them after dark, and so we'll try and get in there so we can just get a little bit of time with them, and then if we haven't had luck with Tundi, we're going to come back into the area and hopefully she's out under the spotlight. So lots to look forward to, and hopefully it will be a good afternoon, and as long as it doesn't rain, everything shall be wonderful. It feels like a new day now that it's not raining. And also Wiem and I spent our morning huddled under the sort of shade netting or corrugated iron where the cars park, and we gave Wendy a clean. So Wendy is now free of dirt, sand, rain, water, leaves, anything else that has been stuck in it over the last couple of weeks, and so it is now as kind of spotless as one could wish for Wendy. There's still a bit of dust here and there, but well, we tried our best to get rid of it. It just didn't come out. So she's as clean as she can be, and Wiem said to me it's almost a shame to take her out when she's so clean, but unfortunately that's just the way it is. These cars have to get dirty, and if they're getting dirty and leaves are falling in, it means that we are following. I can tell you that much. I'm
my goodness, would you look at that? Gremlins right in the beginning of the show. How dare they? Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tayla, and on camera with me today is Craig. Maintenance Craig, Cutthroat Craig, Butternut Craig, any kind of Craig you like. That's what he is. Remember, this is happening. So if you have any questions for us, we'd love to hear from you. Remember to always hashtag Safari Live, as well as chat to us via the YouTube chat. Now, I've just lost our vehicles. Today, Craig and I are going to be playing a new game. Oh, before I even tell you what game, well, no, I'm going to tell you what game we're going to play, but we're first going to have a look at a Goliath Heron, and I think it's a grey heron, standing with it. So the game is called Chat or Animal, and basically when we see cars in the distance, woo! A grey heron just flying off, leaving its rather larger cousin, the Goliath heron, or the largest heron that we get, just standing very quietly in the water. And beautiful, you're going to catch a fish for us. It actually lives around here. I've seen it a couple of times. It is a beautiful bird, but often it also flies away, just as that grey heron did. And we don't get a chance to put it on camera. But it lives around that corner. Beautiful. We've actually spent quite a bit of time with the birds in this little lugger. We've had spoonbills, we've had yellow-billed storks, the hummercorps love it here. It is a birding paradise, as well as the perfect place for hyenas to cool themselves down. So they also like to hang about here, which is quite nice. So we haven't quite decided on a plan this afternoon. Like I said, we're going to be playing a game called Chat or Animal. And if you look across just to the right, where those beautiful crepuscular rays are coming down, now, from when we came back from the escarpment, we saw them, and we've been eyeing them out, wondering what they are perhaps looking at. And I think that there's an animal. Craig, do you think it's chat or animal? You think Craig also goes with animals? So it's either going to be one or the two. Sometimes the cars, when you pass one another, they stop and have chats for long enough periods that you'd think that there was an animal there. Let's go have a look. Now, Sinak, you're wondering if there's any difference between the Goliath and a grey heron. Most certainly, the first one is, of course, size. The Goliath heron is much, much, much taller and has a much bigger wingspan and would presumably weigh a little bit more than the grey heron. In terms of what they eat, no, not much at all. Frogs, anything that lives in the water, even tiny terrapins, a Goliath heron, it wouldn't surprise me. Sorry, I'm just making sure I take the right turns. It wouldn't surprise me if a Goliath heron would also be one of the culprits for taking young crocodiles too. They're exceptionally large birds. I think I'm on a road. Yes, I'm on a road. Just the hippos have walked over here so much, they've basically made the road disappear. And we'll go around. I don't know if we're on the right road. We'll just have a quick look around and see what's about. We can also off-road here, which is what's quite nice. Woo! Well, you saw the rain coming down. Hopefully we won't get wet. The wind is blowing an absolute hurricane. I can't even hear myself talk. I'm just hoping I'm saying the correct words. Jamie has raced on over. She's managed to get a closer view of that black rhinoceros. Let's go take a look.
I have, and I promise you we're going to go to this rhino in a second, but something has just caught my attention, and I just know there's Murphy's Law that's going to apply here when I'm in this position. Hello, that's alright, Rhino. It's okay. There's something I have to show you before it flies away. The bird, what would I call it? It's my Waterloo bird. I'm not sure that's really the correct application of that term. Can you see it there, Dave? The black and white sticking up on the up a little, but quite a bit further. There we go. It's the black and white. No, up and to the right. There we go. Look at that, everyone. It's the black and white casqued hornbill. Poor Meg in Final Control knows all about that particular bird, don't you, Meg? So there we go. I have finally, after 6 months, there you go, that's why I had to do it as quickly as we did. After 6 months of trying to put that bird on camera, we've managed it. The black and white casqued hornbill. It's a massive hornbill. It's absolutely enormous. I know that we've already had a few sightings, or you've had a few sightings with other guides, But it hasn't been me, and I've been trying for a long time, so I'm quite chuffed about that. Right, you want to go and see the rhino now? Yes, I think so. This is an interesting situation. The wind is blowing this way. Black rhino are very much scent-based animals. When you walk up to a black rhino, typically what you want to do is you want to go, obviously, so that your scent is blowing away from it, so that you don't disturb it. And a lot of the time they are so short-sighted, they don't even know that you're there, if you get that right. If you are quiet, and stop here, if you don't step on a twig or anything like that, you can actually get really very close to them. There you go, you can see the second one as well. But now the situation is such that I'm in a car, it's going to hear me coming, it knows that there's something going on, it knows that we're here. And so I'm sort of tossing up whether or not it might be a good idea to actually put us deliberately upwind so that it can smell us. But I think that might be a little bit overwhelming for the rhino. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep our distance and see how close we can get. One of them's out, having a nap. There you go, hello. Yes, we're talking about you. I just see your ears sticking out over the grass there. And somebody's also been enjoying a mud wallow, by the looks of our standing friend. How lovely is this? Look at the hooked lip, you can really see it. Kathy, sort of. So you want to know if rhinos purposely sharpen their horns. They do rub them, and in that way, up against, trees or poles or boulders, but they do it as part of the whole rubbing process, and in that way they do keep them sharp. But most of the growth pattern, it's a relatively natural tapering that happens, but they do sharpen their horns. And now whether that is a deliberate process, I guess, is a tricky one to answer, because it definitely is something that they do. So I guess that there would be an evolutionary advantage to them actually deliberately sharpening their horns, whether that's instinctive or whether they know that what they're accomplishing is, I suppose, in a way, anyone's guess. I think birds are fluttering past. They're a little bit far for me to see. I think possibly some swallows. So interestingly enough, in situations where rhinos' horns are cut, they actually grow back quite bulbous. Proud Cat Mama, you want to know why rhinos always seem so cranky? Of course, the black rhinoceros, or the hook-lipped rhinoceros, has the worst reputation of the rhino. They're not cranky at all. And in fact, I've had some really lovely encounters with very, very relaxed black rhinoceros that have become used to vehicles. Yes, they do have a slightly shorter fuse than the white rhinoceros. White rhinoceros tend to habituate to people very quickly and very easily. I think it has a lot to do with just how short-sighted they are. So it's a sort of a charge first and ask questions later approach. When they can't smell and they can't hear what is approaching them or what is around them, they tend to get quite upset, and they often go barreling off, often not even picking one direction. I've spoken to a lot of people who have spent many years and many hours on foot in the bush, and they say one of the animals that is most often underestimated is the white rhinoceros, or the wide square-lipped rhinoceros, simply because people tend to view it as so placid, but when it does actually charge, it tends to follow through. Whereas black rhino, I've been on the receiving end of a few quite scary warning charges, and they've always turned away. I do know of many people who have been hit by black rhino, in vehicles as well. They're also about a ton lighter than the square-lipped rhinoceros. And I think there's just something, I think it's also in the stories of their attitudes. I mean, look at this. See? We're sitting right here, and this rhino's going to lie down and have a sleep in front of us. How special is that? I also think that part of the stories that have evolved around how grumpy the black rhinoceros is have been as a result of their body posture. They naturally have quite a high held head. They're browsers, they're not grazers like the square-lipped or the white rhino. So I think that sort of inquisitive head posture, which is different to white rhino, I think in a way has contributed to the feelings around them. Having said that, of course, as I said, I've had a few very scary moments with black rhino. But most of the time it just comes from a level of discomfort. Take care. You want to know, well then, why do rhinos have such poor eyesight? Most animals seem to have relatively good eyesight. The answer to that, I'm not 100% sure. I guess the supremacy of their sense of smell and their sense of hearing, you'll find that a sacrifice has to happen somewhere in terms of which sense an animal favors. In the case of human beings, we've sacrificed throughout our years of evolution, we've sacrificed a huge amount of our capacity to hear, our capacity to smell, and we've given way, and that's been replaced by other nerve pathways that do other things in our brain. So perhaps it might be that it's just that that's the way that rhino have evolved. I'm trying to think if there is perhaps because they were forest or their ancestors. I mean, the rhino evolution is quite a complex one, and they evolved in different forms throughout the ages. The black rhino, of course, being the oldest species of rhino, and the white rhinoceros being the youngest, if I remember correctly, in terms of evolutionary history. Should we try and get a little bit closer? They are so beautifully relaxed. I think we probably could. Do it slowly. There's no way I can get around waking them up anyway. We can't see them very well. As soon as I start the engine, they are going to lift their heads, and there's a chance one of them will get up. Just going to let it run. Head up. Head up, but no immediate move to getting up. Actually, the skin of a rhino is very, very similar to that of an elephant. It's very thick. It's not as thick as the skin of an elephant, but it is exceptionally thick. Hi, guys. Hello. Okay, we've got one up. Just hold on to that thought, Ashley. Okay, I'll stop there because baby's got up as well. It's a youngster, 2 years old, 2.5 maybe. Yeah, 2.5-ish. In fact, just almost at that critical age. I'm going to say it's even older. I'm going to say it's much older than I thought originally. I'm going to say it's closer to 3. So almost at that very distressing age where mum's about to have a new calf, one is to find its feet elsewhere in the great wide world. Ashley, what were we talking about again? I'm so sorry. We were talking about something to do with skin. That's it. The rhino skin is also not as wrinkly as the elephant's. It's also not as hairy. Oh, sleepy pie. That was it. So it's not as hairy. It does still have hairs on it, but it's not nearly as hairy as that of an elephant. Elephants actually have a sparse covering of bristly hair that is thick as wire. It really is very springy. Rhinos don't really have that. They do around their tail, and it's sort of in very, very sparse patches around them. This is so special. You see? How wonderful is this? If you want to see just how comfortable she is, she's actually got her back turned to us. She's every now and again just turns an ear. I think we're going to try and get even closer, but very, very slowly and gradually throughout the next hour or so. Let's send you across to Tayla, who's got another animal that's built sort of like a tank.
Well, we've got buffalo, and they're very angry with us at the moment. I don't know why, what we've done to offend them. Actually, I lie. I know exactly why these buffalo have started behaving like this. It's because Craig commented on one of the buffalo's teeth, and he said, what did you say it looked like? Oh, he said he's never noticed their smile, but he didn't say it in such a nice way, though. And then the buffalo snorted at us and ran away, and now they dislike us and they're giving us a death stare. So that's all I've received from buffalo today, is a very angry look. But how cool is this? They're completely caked in mud, so we know what they've been doing. They haven't been doing too much at all today. They've been wallowing around. They've really got it caked on. You can see how clay the mud is in this particular area. And he's a beast of a buffalo. Look at the size of that dewlap. And look at all the bugs. So you can clearly see why he needs to cover himself in mud. There's all those midges and biting flies and whatever else there may be. Really cause an absolute nuisance to these buffalo. So not only does it keep them nice and cool, and we were chatting this morning about elephants getting sunburnt, and well, buffalo don't necessarily get sunburnt, but they need to cover themselves in mud just to help cool themselves down. And then creating that sort of thick crust-like layer also helps keep the biting flies at bay, though it doesn't seem to be working very well this afternoon. Perhaps you need some elephant dung. I always talk about how well elephant dung works as an insect repellent, and, well, elephants don't seem to do it. Although I should eat my own words, shouldn't I? I should burn some of it on drive. Jenny Animation, oh my goodness, it's been a long time since I received a question from you. Thank you. It's so nice to hear from you again. You've said that it always looks like the buffalo are debt collectors. Yeah, they do have a bit of a grudge on their shoulder, don't they? But it's when they move out of the big breeding herds. This is just a bachelor group. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. You can't see the other one. He's just hiding out of frame. But they've older boys, they're tired of, following the herds around. They're becoming a little bit slower. So it's easier just to group up and, well, move at a Sunday afternoon stroll pace. Lay down in the mud, eat when you need to, drink when you need to, defecate when you need to. That's great shot, Craig. Shall we set ourselves a challenge and see how many animals we can see today using the luxury facilities? We might actually be quite a cool challenge to do. I'm so sorry. Megs, can I have that again? The comms just broke up, and I don't know what you said, how we're aging this buffalo. I didn't get the beginning part. There we go. So it's a question from CNAC, and you're wondering, with regards to the beard of a buffalo, if it has any indication as to how old it is. I've never particularly noticed. Let's see, how much of a beardy beard does this buffalo have? They don't really have as much. I find things like Kudu and Inyala have a bigger sort of beard, and then, yes, you can tell how old it is. Not exact, but you can tell whether it's mature or still immature. Let's see, lift your head out of the grass. No problem, the grass is so long here. The wildebeest did not do a good job this year. They've missed plenty spots. No, not sticking its head up. I'm just trying to think. I can't ever remember noticing the beard, but this fellow's definitely got a dewlap, and a dewlap you can most certainly use to age an animal. Again, a young sub-adult will not have a dewlap, but as soon as they reach adulthood, it'll get bigger and bigger. Can you believe it? He doesn't really have much of a beard at all. Well, also, he's so caked in mud at the moment. Wildebeest have got a very hairy chin, though, all the way down to their chest. But even the young ones have that, though. So I'm going to say in the case of wildebeest and buffalo, probably not. It'll be a bit easier just to look at their size and maybe their horn development. Horn development is great as well. You can actually, there's some really cool charts out there that help you when you are learning and starting out on how to age herbivore species. But that's beautiful, though. Now, Rita, you're wondering how heavy are buffalo horns? Okay, well, I've never picked up a live buffalo head before. I don't think I'd live the tail to either. And he's a particularly old fella. You can see how his horns are quite worn. But I have picked up many buffalo skulls that we do see littered around in the bush, particularly in South Africa, courtesy of the Ngahuma Pride and down in Juma. So we have been fortunate enough to have a look. And and most of the time we don't even have a complete skull either. I haven't felt the horns alone. I'm going to say with half of the head and the average size sort of skull that we pick up probably weighs between about 5 and 8 kilograms, maybe even a little bit more than that. Females will obviously be much smaller, but those horns are quite heavy. The keratin around them is obviously quite light. It's not particularly thick. It's only a couple of mils thick, but then the horn it does get quite dense. So yeah, I'm going to say anywhere between maybe about 5 and 8 kilograms. Maybe it's even a bit more. Maybe I'm being a bit too stingy. Maybe it's closer to 10 and 12 kilograms. But they're big animals. I would love to know how much their head and neck weighs with all that muscle, because there's plenty of it. It's beautiful though. Oh, so by the way, we told you we were playing the game Chattel Animal. It was an animal. It was a pair of lions that were laying in the long grass that we could just see a tail twitch every now and then. So we're not going to bother with them now because they're fast asleep. Craig said, why don't we go look for a leopard? So going to look for a leopard is exactly what we're going to do. So we're actually going to move because I want to try and get into the area before it gets too dark. And if the clouds carry on moving the way they do, we're not going to get wet, but we're not going to have much of a sunset, which is a bit of a problem because then we lose light too quickly. And if he's hiding in that long grass, just laying flat, we'll never find him. So we'll go and give it a bash. Jamie, however, has not moved too much other than shuffling around to get a better picture and a closer shot of that beautiful black rhino. Let's jump back on board with her.
A beautiful black rhino and a photobombing warthog that decided it was quite thoroughly upset by an animal with the horn in front of its face and decided it wanted to be on camera as well. I hear that Tayla's been chatting a little bit about aging a buffalo, and that sort of brings us to Proud Cat Mama's question about aging a rhino calf. And what I was doing, actually, which meant I was completely distracted, which was very naughty of me, I was trying to have a look to see if I could find the chart that I used to have, and unfortunately I don't have it with me. So there are a couple of really nice aging charts out there, and essentially what you're looking at for a rhino calf, obviously it gets more difficult once the rhino gets older, once it reaches sexual maturity, but what you can look at is the size of the calf next to the mother. And yes, horn growth as well will also play a role in estimating how old the calf is, because it's even more constant than that of something like an elephant. So it's quite a useful way of gauging just how old the little rhino is. So what I'll do is I'll try and find that chart, and then I've got it somewhere, and I will bring it on the next drive, and we can have a look and we can discuss exactly how you age a rhino. I distinctly remember that time that we did the tent about rhinos when I was back on Juma. I'm sure I bought that chart out and we spoke about aging baby rhinos next to their mums. So I'll have a look and see if I can find it for you again, Proud Cat Mama, and then we can discuss properly exactly the different stages of rhino growth. And one day it'll happen, and it'll happen here, I really want to show you a tiny baby rhino. Nilya, speaking of rhino aging, rhino are actually quite long-lived animals, so they can live between up to 30, even up to 40 years old. So they can live and have quite long lifespans, and that's in the wild, of course. In situations with domestic rhino, you'll probably find that they can live even longer than that. But that's how long they tend to, well, in theory, I say with a slight hint of sadness, in theory, that is how long they should live to be in the wild. Unfortunately, obviously, not all of them will face that kind of life expectancy. So what will happen is a rhino will reach, if it's a male rhino, it'll be, both male and female will be kicked away from mum when she has the next baby, which is usually around about when the calf is 3 to 3.5 years old. It then wanders around on its own. If it's a female, it starts mating at around about 4, or at least has its first estrus cycles, but it will not fall pregnant until it's a little bit older. And for young males, they tend to wander around until they're around about 7, 8, 9 years old, which is when they really start to get big enough to challenge the dominant bulls in an area. And then they start to scent mark and spray their urine. So rhinos have an interesting sort of territorial situation. Females sort of have home ranges, but they're actually quite gregarious and quite accepting of the company of others, unless, of course, they have a brand new baby, in which case they tend to prefer to remain solitary. And the dominant bulls will have a territory that encompasses the territories of females. He'll come and visit every now and again, often get rebuffed from the females if they are almost in estrus. They tend to chase the male away. And he will also tolerate the presence of sub-adult males. As long as they're not showing signs of dominance, if they're not courting the females, if they're not scent marking and scraping their feet, he will be quite happy to allow them into his territory. And it's an interesting process to watch as that shift happens and those males get to an older age. But what's lovely to see is a crash of rhino, and I've been fortunate enough to follow rhino family groups where I've actually followed multiple generations, and I know their family tree and their genetic history completely. I know which mother and which son and sister and brother. And it's been fascinating in my career as a guide to watch them and the dynamics change. For example, my favorite rhino, Notches, had a calf just as I started working there, and her daughter ended up, once she was kicked away from Notches, she ended up spending a lot of time with her older brother. And ultimately, I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again because it's a lovely story. So Ilanga and Chanjana, Ilanga was about 4 and Chanjana was around about 7, 8 years old. Ilanga got caught up in a roll of copper wire, and we darted her, and she was anaesthetized and she went down, and as soon as that happens, you've got to get moving very, very quickly. So everybody jumped out of the vehicles that we were in. She was darted from a helicopter. Everybody raced towards her, and the helicopter pilot actually came back and buzzed us and let off a horn in order to make a really, really loud noise. And the reason that he did that was Chanjana was not frightened away by the sound of all of the commotion. Chanjana had actually come back and he was charging at us. He was about to flatten a whole host of vets and other people. So an interesting insight into the bonds between rhino. If I hadn't seen some of the stuff that I have seen with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. I also saw Ilanga 3 times in 1 hour. I saw her step between her brother and the dominant bull when they were fighting, as Chanjana came to sort of his sexual maturity and his prime. She stepped in between them 3 times. Now, it's something you won't read in a book, but I saw it with my own eyes. I know I saw it happen, and it was a very clearly deliberate action on her part. So whatever motive she had, we'll probably never know. But I've drawn my own conclusions. They're special creatures, rhino, to me. Spent a lot of time with them. Hey girl, your calf is so relaxed and so sleepy this afternoon. A lovely little insight into a rhino life. Mom standing guard still. She's pretty much completely relaxed in our presence. Wondering, Brad? Yes, rhino will only use their horns for defense, defending themselves against males, and defending themselves in various situations against predators. They most definitely don't use them to hunt, although that is quite a terrifying thought. They are strictly herbivorous, and they will only, in the case of black rhino, eat twigs and leaves and branches and bark. Actually, they strip bark like elephants do, and in the case of the square-lipped or the white rhinoceros, they will only eat grass. So fortunately for all concerned, rhino don't use their horns to hunt anything. They can, in certain circumstances, be quite cantankerous, as we've already discussed, and there's pictures all over the internet of a rhino helping a baby zebra that was stuck in the mud. Of course, the end point of that story, which was very sad, was that it ended up essentially stabbing it in the stomach, and the little baby zebra died. And I think it was just purely the fact that the rhino wanted to go into the waterhole. Those of you with sharp eyes, by the way, might have noticed there was also an elephant in the background at one point there. So the rhino's horn, where was I going with that? Oh yes, the females actually need their horn to defend their babies against males. There are situations where baby rhinos have actually been killed by a male rhino because at 1.5 years, their mother comes back into estrus. The males start to vie for the right to mate with her, and they don't tolerate anything around her, including her current baby. And the current baby, be it male or female, but especially with little males, tend to get quite defensive and quite upset, and they're very much still dependent and attached to their mothers. And as a result, the male rhinos occasionally, it doesn't often happen, but it does happen, will occasionally turn around and vent their frustration on the young calf, and can end up killing them. I knew a rhino called Quasimodo, who actually built up quite a reputation for doing that. He regularly killed. Regularly? That's a strong term. He killed quite a few calves, and he killed quite a few females in pure frustration, because the female actually fends off the male for an extended period of time when she's in estrus, basically waiting for another male to have the opportunity who might be a bigger, better option to mate with. It's so peaceful now. Okay, I'm going to spend just a little bit longer with this rhino, just because I haven't in a while. But while we sit with her and enjoy the company of her and her little one, let's go across and find out what special cat Tayla has for you.
Special cats, I'm not so sure. These boys look a little bit on the dirty side. Looks like they haven't run a comb through their starting off manes and the rest of their coats, unless this fella has been stuck in a downpour recently, which is also possible. But there's two of them, two young boys just sitting up in a quarry that Craig had spotted as we were driving through, looking for our leopards, but absolutely no surprise, they're fast asleep, trying to catch up on some energy. They look a bit thin. They don't look particularly full and healthy, but that's to be expected of young male lions. Now, it's difficult to say how old they are just because they haven't put their heads up properly, but with those scraggly manes, I'm going to say they're only about 3 years old. And he's also got some cuts down on the back of his legs, which to me, both of them actually do, but he's got the worst of the two, which to me says that they've been chased by other males. So maybe they've got to the point where they've been recently pushed out of their pride. There's a couple of different prides that you could see around here. Maybe the Salt Licks, maybe the Egyptian Goose Pride. And then, of course, young male lions of this age move around. They don't really have their own home, do they? So I think they've been, well, in a couple of battles. But they'll be fine. They're tough creatures. It's all character building. And one day, when they're big and strong, they'll be able to take over an area of their own. Now, I don't know how long they've been sleeping for. We didn't come and drive around this area this morning. It's also in a big open plain, basically, not many roads, so wouldn't spot them from any of the main roads. But I don't know if they would have been sitting here all day long. Maybe they were moving during the rain. It's been exceptionally hot, and there isn't much shade around here. And we even saw it this morning with the Angama pride, how they abandoned their kill and all marched straight to the shady trees and all the big rocks just a little bit north of the gate to try and escape the sun, which is not a bad idea. I actually don't know what the temperature was today, but it was very, very hot. I think I even got sunburned. Can you believe it? Actually, I can. Now, Staff, you're wondering if these two lions that we're looking at would ever try to join an existing coalition. They might. However, there are two of them, so already they're a coalition. They might accept other lions into their coalition, maybe a single male traveling on their own. And to be honest, it's probably a good time to join a coalition when you're young like this, because trying to get into an established coalition with older males, it can be quite tricky, and most of the time it won't be actually be acceptable. Not acceptable. My goodness, tongue-tied there. They won't be accepted. But as youngsters, they don't really know any better, so they might let some other males come in. But two's fine. Two's a common size of a coalition. Obviously, out here with there being so much space around, you would think you probably want to have a few more lions you've got, the longer you can hold a territory and the bigger the territory you can control. You can split up. For example, look at the Birmingham boys. They look after a massive area, pretty much the entire northern Sabi sand, which is amazing, and they're constantly moving around. And potentially these boys are going to have to do something along the lines. But for now, they're the underdogs. They are going to have a tough time ahead of them for the next couple of years. And hopefully they'll make it through and dodge any particularly grumpy males that is very sort of against young boys. Some male lions are more tolerant than others, but most of the time they'll just get chased. It'll be more of a warning. I mean, you don't want to get into a fight. No animal wants to get into a fight because they know that they run the risk, if they injure themselves, then could be death. That could be the end of them. They might break a paw, but have a huge gash and get infected, be able to hunt properly. And mom's not going to do the killing for them anymore, and they most certainly won't be allowed back in the pride from which they've come. So they need to make sure that they're careful and they choose their battles wisely at this particular age. But fast asleep, they haven't even twitched an ear since we arrived. They didn't even put their heads up. Just very relaxed. But a good spot to sit on, though, after the heat of the day, and it has cooled down quite quickly. And actually within half an hour, the temperature dropped a couple of degrees Celsius, which was very pleasant because I was complaining the whole day about how hot it is. And from up here, they can see pretty much all the way around them. Now, proud cat mummy, wondering how do these cats deal with the sweltering heat? Well, they can pant like dogs can, and then also lions will sit in water or on muddy sort of sections when need be. Otherwise, just by purely laying in the shade will do the trick. But they do get exceptionally hot. But again, a lot of the animals, they get used to the temperatures that they're experiencing every day. You know, getting too hot is not a problem. It's when you go from exceptionally hot weather to absolutely freezing cold temperatures, then you find the younger animals, the adult animals are pretty resistant, but youngsters might not be, and that can result in cold shock, which takes a lot of impala lambs and lots of other young animals too. So we've got a variety of lions to choose from this afternoon, but none of them doing what I want them to do. And we've just been watching sleeping lion after sleeping lion after sleeping lion. And we've sat for hours and hours hoping that they're going to get up, and they don't. I don't know if I've got much patience. I've got more patience for a spotted cat, however, in the form of a cheetah or a leopard. So I think we still might go and look for them. Now, Kathy, you're wondering if lions would ever hunt rhinos. I'm sure they will try, but rhinos are exceptionally resilient creatures. Obviously, they're armed with that big horn, and they've also got armor-plated like skin. It is very, very thick, so even the claws of a lion would struggle to penetrate through that very, very thick skin. So sometimes what they will do is they'll jump around. I mean, a rhino is not particularly quick and fast a lion. Although they can keep that speed up, again, they've got stamina, and they might jump on the back, especially like young males like this might find it a fun game. They often do it with hippos, but just not large enough to bring them down. If it's a young rhino calf that's been abandoned for some reason, most certainly lions will go for it. Lions won't say no to anything. We know that lions, however, don't like to kill other predators. Like hyenas will eat their own kind, and they will eat other predators quite happily. Lions, unless they're absolutely desperate, and this goes for leopard as well, I suppose. We have seen leopards performing cannibalism, though, eating other leopards, but most of the time it's been happening in the really, really dry season. So wondering if it's just not getting enough nutrients from the animals. Bit hectic, but it's one of those things. But I haven't seen, I haven't seen a lion eating another lion before. And then I always talk about, there's a particular documentary, I can't remember what it's called, where this male lion who's injured and old and super weak, he catches a hyena and he eats it out of pure desperation. So again, we all like to say it, is that you can't give animals, we can't put them in the box. Animals don't like to be put in a box. They do whatever they want, whenever they want, in order to survive. And that will go for everyone. Just looking around to see if there's any particular prey coming through, but I can't. It's very quiet here. Very, very quiet. Right. I think we're going to move away from these lions, because there's just no sign of them waking up, and I'd rather go and look for a leopard. I think Craig would enjoy seeing a leopard, and Joseph, who's our Scary, you'd also like to see a leopard this afternoon. So I think that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to send you all the way back across to the gloomy South Africa with Tristan, and I hope he stays dry.
Did anybody else figure out that there were 3 rhino there? I'm really confused. Is that how? What? Did anybody else notice that? I am really confused right now. But I do have lovely news. I know her name. And her name is Naiteru. And that means the fast one. I've just chatted to the guys who are in charge of monitoring these rhino. What? This feels like a magic act has just happened. So there's mom, there's calf, and there's a third one that I had no idea was there. And I'm not entirely sure how that happened. Did it just come in, maybe? No, David, how does that work? No, come on. What just happened? Oops. Okay, Francis, who is watching in Israel. Francis, you say, or is from Israel. I don't know if you're watching in Israel. You say that you knew that there was a third one. Well done, Francis. I am not entirely sure how I missed that. I'm a little bit baffled, I'm a little bit bemused, and I'm a little bit embarrassed. But I miss it, I did. I don't quite know how that all worked. But there we go. There's most definitely 1, 2, and 3 here. Female, and a calf. Milan, you say she actually might have been hiding in the long grass. Look at this. How fascinating is this? I mean, I'm really confused. I'm absolutely, utterly confused as to how that happened. But there you go, very, very identifiable ear notches. So it's the one in the middle that is Naiteru, I think. So you'll be able to memorize her ear notches. And then this female over here with her bottom towards us also has very identifiable notches on her right ear. So if you screenshot those, oh, both of them do. What is happening here? Lady Starfire, if only, huh? If only they multiplied this quickly. If only we blinked and then all of a sudden we had another rhino. So it's a slightly older female and her calf, and then what looks to be a slightly younger female, or at least a female with a slightly shorter horn. It's difficult to tell, of course, once they reach a mature age, because then they do break their horns and they do rub them down. So you can't, it's quite difficult to accurately age a rhino. But this has really become so very special. And I know that Megan mentioned several questions to me earlier, but now that I've been distracted by the arrival of a third rhino somehow, look at this little one sniffing the air. I've completely forgotten them. It's all gone out of my head. Oh, look at this. What happened there, little one? Did you get a surprise? Oh, this is so hilarious. So the mom and the little one don't know this female. Or at least the calf isn't that familiar with this female. They don't spend that much time with her, judging by their reactions. Or at least the reaction of the calf. And you can see there's no aggression there. It's just mom putting herself between the other rhino and the younger rhino. Now, Kathy, you were asking a question about the rhino's upper lip, especially because now this youngster is sniffing the air and actually curiously making his way towards the vehicle. I say he, I'm not a he or she. To a degree, a black rhino's upper lip does work like an elephant trunk. It's not quite as dexterous and it's not quite as versatile, but it is still prehensile and it will wrap around. They do use it in quite a similar way to strip the leaves and the branches that they're feeding off. So they do use it in a similar way. I'm still so utterly baffled by the sudden magical arrival of a third rhino. I mean, David, you didn't see it, right? Okay. I'm just making sure. I mean, I haven't been particularly well today, so I thought maybe I was my brain was doing strange things, but this rhino really did just materialize out of thin air. I also spend quite a bit of time with my head in the footwell of the car looking at the monitor. So perhaps there's an excuse, but I'm not really sure there is. Oh, we're all going off together. Ray Baker, elephants and rhino, no, they're not really related on a close level. Elephants, of course, in terms of distant evolutionary history, have their background in the sea. They are ungulates, and they are odd-toed ungulates, but an elephant doesn't really count as an ungulate, actually. It's a near ungulate rather than an ungulate. Ungulate is you get the even-toed and the odd-toed ungulates. The even-toed ungulates are things like antelope, odd-toed ungulates would be a zebra, has one toe, a rhino that has three. What would another, question for all of you, what would another even-toed ungulate be? And I'm not counting giraffe, and I'm not counting buffalo, and I'm not counting antelope. What is the other even-toed ungulate that we get out here? As a little quiz for you. Answers through on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. What we could have here, but I don't think so from their body language, is a female and an older calf. So it's no longer a calf, but her daughter, and then her younger calf, which is obviously the one on the right. It is very common once the younger calves have sort of grown up a little bit and the mother's more comfortable and confident. It's very, very, very common for previously displaced calves to then return to their mothers, and they could actually spend many years of their lives with her. And often you'll find mothers and daughters together they might split up for a little bit as the daughter goes off to have her first baby, but it's very common to see them gather together. Now, initially I didn't think that was the case with this body language, but now they seem to be quite close and quite relaxed with each other. So maybe that was what happened. Maybe that is what the situation is. But as I said, females are not territorial, so it could be a completely unrelated female as well. The magical teleporting rhino. Oh, there we go. So Kathy and Monique, Kathy, I confess I forgot about the warthog. Okay, absolutely, I accept that. Even-toed ungulate, and yes, absolutely. The one that I was thinking of was the hippopotamus, and I thought I'd catch you out because it's got 4 toes instead of 2, but I actually realized it's becoming more and more difficult to catch you guys out on a daily basis, which is why I've almost completely stopped trying to do it. But very well done. That was the answer I was going for. Imagine seeing a woolly rhino. For some reason that's come into my mind thinking about genetic evolution. Fascinating. Alright, I've got to still wrap my mind around the fact that 2 rhinos became 1. So while I try and figure out the mysteries of the Masai Mara, let's go back across to South Africa so we can look at a very pretty bird.
Well, they are very pretty birds, also birds that we don't see that often, and especially not as close as this, that we can get such nice views of them. So it's a brown-headed parrot, and there's a few of them. They're busy feeding off. You can see there's these small little berries on the spike thorn that they're busy getting, and there's a couple of them in here. They all kind of spread out all over the place, and you can see where they get their name from, that brown head, but they've got this beautiful electric green wing and body, and you often find them in riverbed systems, but they generally are quite shy. We don't really get nice views of them normally. They also tend to be quite high up in the trees, and so to see them at eye level is very cool. It's something that I haven't seen for quite some time, so I'm thoroughly enjoying sitting with our parrots, and I think there's about 4 or 5 of them in total that are spread out between all of the trees, and each one is pecking away at a spike thorn of their own, trying to find some sort of berry that's underneath there. You can see the berries are still a little green and they're kind of hidden underneath, but I suppose these guys are just looking for any sort of food, and it's probably been quite a lean winter. It's not easy when you're a parrot and you like fruits and winter comes along, everything gets a bit dry. So they'll be thoroughly impressed that they're able to get some fruits now, and this rain that we've just had will certainly make things a lot better. Now there seems to be something coming in. You see the parrots have just flown off, and that's because there's a Wahlberg's eagle that's just flying over and above us. Unfortunately, Viem's got a bit of an issue with the roof, and so the Wahlbergs should come out in front of us. There it goes. There's a pale form Wahlbergs. There it comes. Thanks, Wiem. Well done. I know it's not easy, so Viem's trying to just get it with all the roof and everything like that, but there it goes, the pale form off towards the nest, and so that's why all the birds scattered as quickly as they did. They got an absolute fright from that bird coming over, and everybody then pushed off. But that was very cool to see, and definitely a nice little highlight. Now, Megan, I'm sorry I can't hear a word that you're saying. You're going to have to repeat that again. I'm going up and out of the Mulawati a little bit. David, you're asking if the wild parrots imitate other animals. So no, they don't. Well, not that I've seen anyway. We don't see them imitating any of the other birds out here. But what there is quite a beautiful bird. Just, you see this sort of fallen over tree? Just on the right side of the fallen over tree is a crested barbet that's sitting there. It's quite difficult to see. Maybe just go up a little bit for me, Wiem. A little bit up to the right a little bit. Right, more. And so maybe, sorry, a little bit more to the left. Sorry, Wiem, it's my fault. My directions are terrible. I'm just trying to work out where you are. A little bit more to the dead tree to the left. A little bit more. There, yeah. So there's our crested barbet hopping about inside there. So we're talking about beautiful coloured birds. These guys have also got some ridiculously pretty colours and a big punk rock hairstyle, if you want to call it that. They've got that little crest that gives them their name. You can see they are also a fruit eater, big bulky bull, just like what we saw on the parrots. They have the same kind of big beak that's able to crush down fruits and be able to get food. Now, interestingly enough, with the barbets, they're one of the few birds besides the woodpeckers that is actually able to make a hole in wood and make a nest in a tree. So they will actually bore wood out and then they go and nest inside there, which is pretty cool. Right, now we are in the area where Tundi/Shadow, no one's sure which one it was seen, and so I'm going to try and just have a look. I heard a squirrel alarm calling just now, but that could have been for this Wahlberg's eagle that came over. Ultimately, all the birds started making a noise, and maybe that just hyped up a squirrel. We know the squirrels get a little bit hyped up. Now, if you have a look on our left-hand side, there's actually a beautiful tree that's busy flowering at the moment, and it looks like an atoll plane. I just want to see the leaf structure a little bit better, but it does look like an atoll plane. So the planes do flower at this time of the year, and it will be an Ochna is its scientific name, Ochna nataliensis. I think it's an atoll plane. I just have to check with Ellie, she'll know for sure, but it looks like an atoll plane. That's what they normally look like, a little serrated leaf, and not something that you generally do see close to drainage lines and riverbeds. They see all of the flowers that are budding, and so this will be just a complete bright yellow sort of cascade of flowers a little bit later. I must just double check it though, because there's also at the moment a thing called a Mopani pomegranate, and so the Mopani pomegranates will also be flowering at some point, but I'm sure this is an atoll plane. It's growing in the right area for them. Now, Linda, you say, oh, so beautiful. It is nice to see a splash of colour, isn't it? Especially on grey days like today. A splash of bright yellow or bright greens from the parrots is always very nice to see. It makes kind of everything a little bit more vibrant and a little happier. Right, now, I wonder where this leopard went. I'm sure it must be somewhere close by. I don't think it would have gone far, although you never know. The conditions are right for leopards to move quite a bit, and so I wonder if maybe she hasn't moved off. Apparently, she was seen somewhere close to the bank here and was moving around on this particular area, so I wonder if she's not still just lying somewhere here in Shadow. We know she slept here the other day, and so maybe she is still here. Right, well, while I check, I believe Jamie is in the Mara. She's had lots of luck with 3 of my favorite animals, and I'm very jealous, and I wonder what's next on the list.
Another little tiny baby elephant for you. It is just too gorgeous. I nearly drove right past it. It was hidden in the grass. Seems to be a bit of a theme today, doesn't it? Surprise animals popping up. Look at this tiny little one. So new. Couple of weeks at the most. It's still got those floppy ears. that don't quite know what to do with themselves in the floppy trunk and right below Mum's belly in terms of height. So, a really lovely tiny little elephant. We've had so many special baby animal sightings in the Mara recently. It's a lovely time to be out here. Most tourists tend not to come around this time of year because it's the rainy season and the migration's gone, but there is plenty to see even with the wildebeest absent. And I think this is rapidly becoming my favorite time of year. I've spent the entire year in the Mara, but so far this has been my favorite time. The grass is short, you see all kinds of things, and the place just seems to be bursting with babies. Benoli, absolutely a cuteness overload indeed. Tiny, oh, rubbing up against Big Sister, how sweet. Oh, you can't use your Big Sister as a scratching post, you know. That's not very polite at all, little one. She doesn't seem to mind, though, and of course this is great practice for her as she grows older and has a baby of her own. Oh, we're going head first. Was that intentional, or was that just a hole? Oh, we're back up again. Unfortunately, the direction that Mum's going in, she's probably going to pass behind us, but I definitely don't want to turn on the vehicle and startle her at this proximity. She's slowly getting closer. Hello, little one. Welcome to the world. Still a little unsteady, but in all fairness, this is... Oh! I wonder, the wind is still blowing a little bit, but I wonder, oopsie, we fell down again. I wonder if I'm quiet, you might actually hear the sounds of the elephants pulling up the grass. Oh, here comes the wind again. I can give it a try. Yes, that's grass. You'll eat it one day. David, funnily enough, when we compare the elephant and the rhino, like the sighting that we just had earlier, it's such a different approach because, yes, I think that siblings in rhinos do get quite jealous of the others because, of course, they get kicked out and they don't get mum's they don't get mum's attention. Whereas with elephants, I don't think there's any real sign of jealousy that I've seen. It's difficult to gauge things from a very human perspective, but I've never seen any sign of it, and particularly with older females. They tend to actually really, oh, it's a little girl as well. They tend to actually really love their siblings. It's a bit uneven ground for such little leggies. And they actually go out of their way to protect them and to gently direct them. And there's no sign of irritation here. I have seen older elephants bully younger elephants before, often where mums come and stepped in, and we've seen that live way back when I actually first started here. We saw a situation where an older elephant cousin, I would assume, stole something from a younger elephant, and there was much screaming and complaining. This baby elephant, you can't really see it, but it's actually now trying to eat a termite mound. Had its mouth fully over the termite mound entrance. Yes. So much to explore, hey, little one. It's even worth the bumpy ground. You don't have to do all of that tedious chewing. Kathy, a baby elephant will sort of start to supplement its diet with grass. It won't be weaned, but it will be eating grass at around about 6 months of age. That's when they first start to properly feed on solid food. They'll still drink milk for a good few years after that, but up to even 5 years or possibly even older, depending on how tolerant mum is. but that's the age at which they really start to they will eat like this little one is doing now. They'll chew on grass earlier than that because it's a natural learning instinct. They're imitating the adults and the older youngsters. Oh, this is definitely a sibling pair. Oh, you're hearing other Ellies talking. So sweet. You are very stumbly. Turtle, I've seen elephants as old as 3 years old still occasionally make mistakes with their trunks. So for our new viewers, baby elephants have to learn to use their trunks like toddlers have to learn to develop their hand coordination. It's a very similar process, and it takes a while, and a lot of the time they seem thoroughly baffled by what on earth they're meant to do with the strange thing that hangs off the end of their face. So I've seen young elephants, 3-4 years old, still make mistakes. Oh, but in their first few months of life, they've grasped the basics. I'm sorry about this, everyone. It is going to go behind where we can see, but I'm not going to start the vehicle now. So it is going to go beyond our boundary. We've got another elephant to keep us entertained while we wait for this little one to cross over us, behind us. Hey, Mum. And you, little one? There we go. Beautiful trunk coordination happening there. Twisting around the plants. So this elephant would be about 3 years old. A bit older, 3.5. At a guess. Oh, you're missing a tusk on one side. Hey, girl. Possibly damaged when the elephant was younger. Possibly just a situation where it didn't grow at all. I'm just trying to get eyes on little one. Although now this one's quite close to us. I think if I start up the engine, this one's going to startle as well. And I don't really want to do that at all. Yes, I see you. Don't worry, I see you. Little bit of a sideways head turn because she's all alone and she's realized she's quite far away. Okay, I'm going to turn us around and try for one last view of our baby elephant. Let's go back across to Tristan in South Africa and see whether he lives up to his fantastic leopard finding reputation.
Well, not yet, Jamie. I'm trying to find where they last had her before I can even try and find a track. There's just vehicle tracks all over the place here where they were obviously following her during the course of this morning. And so I'm just trying to work out whether she was going south or north or which way she was going. But nobody seems to be able to give me an exact answer. Everyone I've spoken to has given me a different direction. So I'm just trying to see if I can spot anything. The thing is, if you can believe it, is a herd of elephants came through here, so that might have pushed her into somewhere else and into a thicket. So I'm just trying to double check and recheck and try and find some sort of sign or a track that I can work with, that I can at least then follow, and maybe we can find this individual. I mean, she might be lying in this drainage line to this side. You can see a number of the vehicle tracks came out here, so it might be worth going and checking there, although I don't know if she came from this side and was heading towards the dam or what the story was. So we might as well just go and double check up here quickly. This is an area where I've seen both Tundi and Shadow both spend time before. They both like to sort of hang around in this particular section, so it might be worth just driving along. Maybe I bump into one of them somewhere here. I'm just following vehicle tracks from this morning. I might be completely wrong and be on the complete wrong direction. She might have come from here, but it's worth a try, given that I can't really get an accurate description of where exactly she was left. But there's a duiker far away running away from us, so that doesn't bode well for a leopard lurking right here. Though you never know. Maybe she is. Just got to be careful VM doesn't get hurt by some thorns on the left. Now there's a grey go-away bird that's alarm calling. You hear that, VM? It's just flown away. The problem with the area that we're in at the moment is that there's a Wahlberg's eagle nest not too far away. There we go. Eventually we'll get it out, and that could then potentially mean that there might be something to do with that, and that's why the grey go-away bird might have made a noise, is that it's unfortunately seen something there. Now Aubrey's calling me on the radio. Go ahead, Aubrey. So he's asking me about the herd of elephant tracks that I saw. I think so, Orbs. They were going in southwest from just north of Tundam, so I'm pretty sure they've crossed south already. So he was just trying to find out what was going on with the elephants and whether I think they've crossed south or if they still might be in this area, to which my answer to him is that I'm pretty sure that they've crossed south, because at the moment those tracks are not far north of the boundary and I don't see any elephants close by, which should then mean that they've already gone in a sort of southerly direction and crossed off over our area. But I don't see any kind of fresh tracks that carry on past this particular point where I am now, so I think, I don't know, I'm going to try and just scratch around here and have a little look. Maybe I'll get lucky and find something, but I honestly don't know if we're going to have much luck without somebody who actually saw this individual this morning giving me a proper update as to exactly where she was left and which direction if she came from, because ultimately, like I say, I could just be finding or going back on the wrong place. So let's just check. There's just a number of vehicle tracks all over the place though. They seem to have driven all over in this area, and like I say, I've had both Sunday and Shadow here before, so it's not a place that I wouldn't expect them to be. I would expect to see them both in this general vicinity as well. Now I think Megan is trying to call me again, but I've got no comms with her once again, so hopefully they will come back at some point. So all I got is that I need to go back to Jamie because I got to try and sort out this comms issue, and so hopefully I'll try and get the timing right and that we won't be too far off. But let's go and see where Jamie is and what she's up to and whether she's got that elephant.
Unfortunately, our little baby elephant has gone wandering off into a thicket. Well, actually, baby elephant didn't go wandering off, Mum did, and baby elephant, of course, tagged along behind her. So somewhere in there it is on the left, you could just see it. Here we go. That's going to be our last glimpse of this little baby for the time being, I think. Let's sit and wait just a little bit longer. Hopefully she decides to move, or Mum decides to move out a little bit to the right, and then we should see it again clearly. But if she doesn't, and little baby disappears, I've still got quite a cool bird to show you, and it's been calling the whole time that we've been here. One that our regular viewers are very familiar with. Kaylin, I guess so. Of course, we know for our new viewers, elephants flap their ears to cool themselves down. It's because they've got an intricate sort of network of blood vessels in their ears. The skin is thin, and so by flapping their ears, they cool themselves down by creating an air current. Kaylin's question is, if the elephant holds its ears flat against its head, is it trying to stay warm? I suspect that elephants are pretty much a comfortable temperature almost all of the time, and the reason that I say that is they're just so massive. All of that, you know, their bodies produce heat naturally, as all endotherms, yes, like human beings, we maintain an internal body temperature, but the difference is that elephants, because of their massive size, have quite a small surface area to volume ratio, which means that heat disperses quite slowly. as a general rule. I know it's not quite as simple as that, but let's say that that's the case. So I would say that elephants, perhaps baby elephants, do occasionally feel a little bit cold because they're tiny, and therefore their surface area to volume ratio is larger. So perhaps, yes, I suppose you could say they're not cooling themselves down. Whether it's an act of keeping themselves warm, I'm not 100% sure. I would say probably it's just they're not cooling, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if there is a massive distinction between not cooling themselves down and keeping themselves warm. It's more that they're just sort of staying the temperature that they are, because it won't really, especially on a windy day like today, it won't really make too much of a difference. Be interesting to know, and I must research more into this, and it's actually I'm surprised that this question hasn't popped up before, which is why I love doing these live safaris, of course. It's half the fun. Be interesting to know about the constriction of blood vessels in elephants' ears when it gets cold. Like human beings, our blood not as much blood flows around close to the surface of the skin when we're cold. I assume it must work the same for elephants. I'm going to research that. Of course, it never really gets too cold here, but it does go down to around the wind chill factor does does take away a few degrees of temperature, especially on a windy, cloudy day like today. Bye, little Ellie. Thank you for a lovely sighting. Megs, would you like me to try and get the bird on camera quickly, or do you have other things planned for us this afternoon? I can try and do it. I just have to move around a little bit. It's just behind a bush. I've got a horrible sneaking suspicion it's just popped off that termite mound. But let's try. Ask Dave. It's been calling the whole time we've been sitting here. Of course, now the wind's blowing, so we're not going to be able to listen to it. But it's still funny to watch it do the call. Ah, David's gone. Oh, no. Was there. No, it's definitely gone. It was a black-bellied bustard, just by the way. So those of you who are familiar with that, the whistle and then the sound of a champagne cork popping out of the bottle. That's what the calls sound like. Okay, well, I suppose I'd better go off and find a different bird to show you, or perhaps something else. I don't know. Let's find out what the future has in store. I think it sounds like Tayla's doing something very similar with her afternoon.
Just going for a bumble. It feels like it. We're trying so hard to find animals. Well, we found animals, they're just not doing what we want them to do. So we're still bumbling about looking for this leopard. We're going to take a road that goes all to the left and then wander down towards the lugger from this side. But as we're driving about, there was a question coming through from Jean, and you were wondering whether there were any gorillas that are inhabiting this sort of mountain range that we can see just here. So this is an escarpment. This is an escarpment called the Olololo escarpment. And wow, why do you want to run out in front of my car like that? For what? The little spur file just disappeared into the grass. They always do that. Them and the Cokie Franklin, they go absolute last second, and then they run back again. They're like, oh, where did you come from? Sorry about that. And the brakes didn't want to work either, but it survived. It maybe just came out a bit wiser, that bird, after this situation. Learned not to run in front of the big green things with wheels. So no, there aren't any gorillas up there. There are lots and lots of leopard, though. I'm sure they're thriving up on the escarpment. Lots of baboons. The bird species, great nesting site for a lot of eagles. So there are many other things that inhabit that area. Actually, speaking of birds, I saw a new bird today and I want to show you. Now I have to find it on my camera and in my book. So should be one of the last ones I took. Just get a picture. It was tough because it was hiding away in the bushes. Is that a good one? That's shocking, Tayla. I think we'll go with this one. A little bit obscured. Sorry, it's not a clear picture, but you'll get the gist of it. How cool is that? Well, straight away you look at that bird and hopefully all of you are saying, it's a barbet, it's a barbet. And it is a white-headed barbet eating berries off of some tree. which was really cool. So I actually saw it was around camp. So Jamie, here's another bird you can maybe add to your list when you're doing birding segments around camp. There's so many. So there's a barbet that's just indigenous to Zambia. I don't think I've ever told you about the chaplain's barbet before. It only occurs there in a very small pocket. So I'm going to get to the barbets. Starting to learn this book and their page numbers as well. Where are you? Oh, that's new. So there we go. So this is the one that we saw. And probably, if not, actually this subspecies over here with the white sort of blotches on the wings. And then if you go to the right, just this one over here, that's the chaplain's barbet. So almost like the white-headed, except it's got a few red speckles and a bit of yellow on the wings too. But very, very cool. I wasn't able to see the chaplain's barbet, but hopefully next time I go across to Zambia I will, because that would be a very cool bird to see that you can only see in Zambia and nowhere else. Right, where's this cat? Where's this leopard? Now Ruth, all the way from Costa Rica, you're wondering if we have toucans. Oh, cheers. Sorry, I saw those with crocodiles, but I think it's just bits of mud in the water. We don't have any, not in South Africa and not in Kenya, as far as I'm aware, but we've got some interesting birds that look similar to toucans. I would say the Ross's Tarocco. Hang on, let me show you. I might actually be able to bring this one up on my mobile device. Let's do that instead, because there might be some cool real pictures. Which is quite a nice bird and quite large, and they've got a very big exaggerated beak. Open. It's being very slow. So let's go to Tarocco. Here we go. This is a cool one that hangs around camp. Right, so I'm just swiping. Where's a good picture? That's a great demonstration of flash coloration with the bright red underneath its wings. No, that's it. Oh, there we go. Well, as you can see, they're birds that are difficult to take a picture of, but they've got a bright sort of interesting markings on their face with a little red tuft of hair or feathers on top, which is quite cool. And then of course we've got, what else? We see the grey go-away birds and the purple-crested Tarocco down in South Africa, but no toucans. Well, the hornbills have got a pretty big beak too. Like the yellow-billed hornbills, the red-billed hornbills, they've all got large beaks, but no, there were no toucans. Now, James, you're wondering, where do the weaver species typically nest in the Mara? I've seen them up in trees. I've seen the white-browed sparrow weavers and their nests up in the trees. I haven't actually seen any of the other smaller yellow weaver species. But I would imagine around the marshy areas, maybe where you get some sort of rushes and things, maybe some of them make their nest on there. There's also lots of palms, and it's actually one of the favorite things, and especially one of our many years ago growing up, we had a big palm tree hanging over the pool, and it was the weaver's favorite thing to do was to strip bits of the palm leaves and actually go and weave with that. See, grass works just as well, but the palm leaves are quite tough and actually make for a better nest. In fact, they, a little bit more resistant to the wind. So I haven't actually seen traditional weaver nests, which is quite interesting. So I'll keep an eye out for that. Maybe if we go along the river and we check on some of those low-lying branches, we'll be able to spot them. We know that weavers often build their nests above a water source for protection from things like snakes and smaller cat species and lizards that will eat eggs. So that's a good spot to build them. But I haven't noticed it. I'm so sorry, Megan, I cannot copy you anymore. I didn't hear what you said. I think we're still live, but I don't have comms. Oh no, I do have comms, sorry. I think Megan had asked me something, but I only got a third of it. Anyways, we're going to keep searching with the last bit of light for this leopard, and hopefully we get lucky. Jamie has had a successful day with some of the bigger mammal species. Hopefully she's going to jump on board the cat train.
Oh, I hope so, but I mean, already, that's another rhino. Alright. Okay. Rhinos everywhere. Oh, sorry, Dave, that's a little bit of an awkward angle. Not too terrible. Where's it? There it is. Surprise! Rhino number 4 for the afternoon. That's not bad. That's not bad going. I'm pretty sure that's a different rhino. I was sitting with the elephants the whole time, so I was looking back towards our 3 rhino, and they definitely didn't come down here, so this is another rhino. How really, truly lovely. And of course, this is a great place for them because they've got a lot of secret places that they can go and hide. Black rhino tend to prefer denser vegetation, so they'll go off into those forested luggers or forested regions around the base of the mountains. Beautiful. Another quite a distant rhino. I wonder if we're going to hear some interesting sounds, vocalizations from them tonight. They might encounter each other. This looks like... It's hard to tell at this distance. I think it's another female, funnily enough. I think. Ali, yes, rhinos can run. Rhinos can run very fast. Rhinos can run faster than a human being. Really, at their sort of top speeds, maybe the fastest, maybe Usain Bolt could perhaps keep up with a rhino at top speed, but they can run for a long time as well. They've got quite considerable stamina. They can also basically turn in the space of their bodies, if that makes sense. So you look at them and you think, well, there's quite a large, quite a cumbersome creature, as we always talk about with elephants and with hippopotamus. And in fact, they're quite agile, particularly black rhino. And there is nothing better than watching a black rhino dance. They do a little dance. They do a little hop, skip, feet sideways like this. It's entertaining to watch. They do it as part of their threat display often. And I'm going to move on because he's right at the end of our zoom ability. So he really is. I'm not sure. I think it's a female. Right at the end of our zoom. And unfortunately, this camera is struggling a little bit at those distances. But they do a very sweet little dance, and the baby rhino do it as well. I really want to show you a tiny baby rhino. They're all ears and feet. They're like puppies, and they hop and bounce, and then they fall asleep. And then they get up, and they hop and they dance, and then they go to sleep, and then they repeat. It's very sweet. I didn't quite hear what Meg said because I forgot to turn up my radio when I started the engine, but I do know that we're going back across to South Africa. Let's go and find out from Tristan what he's searching for and what his plans are next.
Well, sorry, excuse me. Sorry. Well, I'm trying not to choke to death by the sounds of things. Now, we're still looking in the area of where this leopard was supposed to be. There's just vehicle tracks everywhere. Can't really find any footprints, so to speak, and there's lots of alarm calls of various bird species. So I think there's a leopard here somewhere. It's now just down to a bit of luck and us actually finding them. Whether or not we will, well, that's also a sort of guess at this stage, but we're trying our very best, and we're looking around and just trying to see what we can see, and so far there's a few Ellie tracks around, which is quite nice to see, except that they go south and towards sort of Chitwa side, or Little Gari should I say, not Chitwa, I don't know why I say Chitwa, I think the lion story on my brain there. And so there's just those Ellie tracks around, and that's really about it. There's very little else that is kind of moving around, and it's not much happening on Juma. I suppose everybody's also up in Buffelshoek with the amount of things going on that side with the cheetah and the lions. I think everybody is kind of moved into that area, so we're all on our own down on Juma at the moment, and it's proving to be a little bit tough. We really haven't found too much, so hopefully we'll find something fairly shortly. Just want to check Treehouse Dam, one because I need to do our time lapse, otherwise Sebastian's going to be very cross with me, and two, well, because you never know. If it was Shadow, she might have come back this way and headed in this direction and might have been kind of hanging around somewhere around the dam. Now, Megan, I know you're asking a question, but I absolutely cannot hear one word. There's really something very wrong with our comms this afternoon, and so I can't hear a single word that Megan is saying, and I don't know why. Now, hopefully it will come back at some point. Ah, there we go. No, Megan, you're gone again. I got comments, maybe try find. So we'll try and find whatever. VM, what do you want? Pangolin. Oh, there we go. Okay, Megan, well, we'll try our very best. I'll go and look in the area where we had those tracks. I did kind of go roughly past that section and didn't see anything at all, but maybe it's around. I'll go and have a double check and have a little look. Unfortunately, the Nkahuma Pride is absolute chaos at this stage. There's so many vehicles that are trying to get in there that I don't even think, even if we go there now, we're going to have time to get into that sighting. I just wanted to quickly check the waterhole before we go down and do our time lapse. So it seems as though there's not really anything around. I do apologize about the pole. That is our roof that is still on, just in case any of these dark clouds start to get a little bit more ominous and we start to see a bit of rain coming down. It feels as though it's gotten a little darker in the last bit, but I was hoping that maybe something would be around. I suppose it's not really the right weather to drive animals towards the dam itself. It's kind of weather that you would find a lot of the animals curled up, much like what we saw from Mvula yesterday, and so I don't think we're going to see too much coming down to the dam. It was a long shot, but a shot that we wanted to take anyway. What we can show you maybe is if I go back and try and go in position for our time lapse. Kerry asking, has anyone heard or seen or anything about that pregnant leopard? Now, I suppose you're referring to Tundi, who we saw a few days ago. No, so well, we're not sure if we're trying to find Tundi this afternoon or we're trying to find Shadow. They're sisters, and they often get confused by a lot of people. And so somebody said Tundi, another person said Shadow. I'm not sure which one. But in terms of before that, not since we last saw her, which was 3 days ago, will still be pregnant. She's not going to be giving birth anytime soon. It will still be probably another month at least until she's ready to drop and to have her cubs. So I'm sure she's fine. She's a wily old lass, and I call her an old lass, but I suppose she's not that old. She's only in her 11, and so she's still got some time left in her, and so she'll be able to figure the things out and she'll be okay. And I'm pretty sure that we'll find a situation that she's just fine. I'm hoping at least, but I can't promise many animals this afternoon, but maybe what I can do is promise you a VM sighting. VM, are you going to be on camera for us? Are you going to sit and do your time lapse while we're live?
Just gotta get my contract sorted for that.
Oh, you've got to get your contract sorted there. We are not signed for it yet. So VM is going to do our time lapse for Sebastian, and so I've got to just sort out some paperwork for VM so that he can appear on camera and sign his release form for being on the camera itself. And VM is about as wrapped up as I am today. He's got his long pants on, he's got a jacket on, so he's also feeling the cold a little bit. And shortly you'll see an appearance of VM, the very special wildebeest. And there he goes. Say hello, VM. Wave to everybody. There we go. VM has waved to everyone. So it's always quite funny watching the cameraman get out of the vehicle and kind of be in front of the camera, because generally they're all a little on the shy side, except Senzo, who just is completely as cool can be. And well, Seb, he's been in front of the camera before, so he doesn't mind too much, but the rest are a fairly shy bunch. Funny how that works. So like I was saying, the reason why we're doing these time lapses is just for a change of seasons, effectively. So for all of you that are new and don't know what I'm talking about, basically what we have is we have two places on Juma that we have a little kind of mount, and GoPros click into it, and once a day we come out at a similar time of day and we just take a little photo, and basically what's going to happen is they're going to put all of those photos in one little folder and then run them through, and it'll almost be like a movie of every single day for the last, I don't know, it's been about 4 months already now, so they're going to keep going until the end of summer, and it'll basically show this change from winter as it got drier through the spring and then into the summer as things kind of get greener and hopefully the dams fill up. And so that's the point of the whole exercise, and that's why we're dragging VM off the vehicle and making him appear in front of the camera. So there we go. Alright, VM, where to next? What did you say, VM?
Repeater Road.
Repeater Road. You think Repeater Road is the winning road?
Yeah.
Okay, VM. You're going to have to trust VM's judgment, because if VM says Repeater Road, well, let's give it a bash. Maybe we'll get lucky with that. Now, Megan, I know you commented on something, but honestly didn't hear a single word that you said. Not sure what's going on. So a lot of you loved Viam's appearance. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed Wilde's appearance. Like I said, he's the most very special wildebeest of all, and so it's not a common species and a very rare one, and we wouldn't be able to do half of what we do without Viam, because not only is he a wizard on the camera itself, but he's also a bit of a tech genius too. So Viam is a very sought after man in camp a lot of the time, when any computer related issues or anything like that, Viam is the man to go to. So we keep him very, very busy, that's for sure. Ali, you're asking how will Tumba react to Tandi's new cubs when she has them? Interesting. It'll be an interesting thing to watch. I wonder if he's going to be aggressive towards them, or maybe he'll just be fairly kind of relaxed. It'll also depend on Tandi's reaction to him. I mean, Tandi might be super aggressive towards him and chase him away if the cubs are around and not allow him anywhere near, or she could be a bit like Karula. And when Karula had Shavinzi and Shavambalana, there was a sighting, or a few sightings actually, of Induna and Mishu around those cubs, and there was absolutely no animosity between any of them. So it could be a situation where he's fairly tolerant and quite chilled and just kind of watches them. I think that would only be a bit later. I don't think it would be right early on when she first has them. I think Tandi will be super kind of protective when she first has them and make sure that they don't come anywhere near the little cubs, both Tumba and Hosanna. And I say Hosanna not because he's, you know, a cub of Tandi's, but he seems to have latched onto her a lot and followed her around, and so I think there's a situation that, you know, he's going to get pushed away just as much as what we would have seen from somebody like Tumba. So I think she'll keep the cubs quite guarded from them, but once they get a little bit older and maybe a little bit kind of sort of more mobile and more sort of adventurous, then she might be quite fine with it, or she might be aggressive. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Like I say, I mean, it's one of these things that we can never truly know, because they all have their own personalities and they all do different things, and it's pretty amazing actually to watch the whole process go on with